In 1963, during excavation work in the southeastern region of Turkey, researchers discovered some ancient remains. At first, these remains were assumed to be relics from the Middle Ages, and I sincerely congratulate the team running that project back then for their unbelievable negligence. Years passed, and in 1990 for the German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt began re-examining the site. Unlike his predecessors, he did not repeat their mistake and immediately understood its importance. As Schmidt deepened the excavations, what emerged was not a simple medieval grave, but an enormous temple complex. Massive megalithic pillars, some reaching 6 meters in height and weighing up to 50 tons, rose to the surface after thousands of years, revealing themselves to the world once again. Now, many of you might be thinking there are already 1,000 videos about Göbeklitepe. Why bother with another one? Honestly, I thought the same until I learned about the Vulture Stone. And if the message on that stone truly means what some claim it means, then you can forget every Göbeklitepe video you've ever watched. Welcome, everyone. First, let's look at Göbeklitepe from the viewpoint of mainstream modern science and academia. According to radiocarbon dating, Göbeklitepe dates between 9500 and 8200 BC, making it one of the oldest known human-made structures on Earth. Yet academia ignored this truth for years. You won't even find it in many history books. The reason, as I've been telling you for nearly a year, is simple. The history we are taught is the history that certain people want us to believe. According to this version, civilization begins with the Sumerians. Anything before that is dismissed as primitive. Unfortunately, Göbeklitepe has also been trapped within this narrow mindset. Even today, many mainstream academics claim Göbeklitepe was built by hunter-gatherer tribes, and that the animal carvings were simply depictions of creatures they saw around them. According to this shallow perspective, the probability of a civilization existing before the Sumerians is practically zero. Klaus Schmidt himself strongly disagreed with these conclusions and believed the structure was far from simple. Rather, that it was built by a far more complex society for a specific purpose. And really, if we think about it for even a moment, the idea that a hunter-gatherer society carved 6-meter, 50-ton pillars and built a meticulously organized temple just because they saw some birds is absurd. Let's move on from the classic mainstream denial and dive deeper into the subject through the lens of more open-minded scientists. Initially thought to be a small ritual area, Göbeklitepe is now believed to span an area larger than 12 football fields. Excavations continue to expand, leading to discoveries such as Karahan Tepe, another massive site, suggesting that this entire region may be full of ancient complexes and underground settlements. These are incredibly exciting developments for human history. So what were these ancient people building these gigantic monuments for? To sacrifice animals or humans? To perform equinox rituals? To honor their gods? These theories are repeated endlessly in countless documentaries. Yet almost no one questions the purpose of the Vulture Stone, a stone that may completely change everything we know about Göbeklitepe. In 2017, two researchers approached the issue from a completely different angle. Chemical engineer Martin Sweatman and Demetrius Tsakritsis. They were particularly intrigued by one pillar, the Vulture Stone. They noticed that the arrangement of the carved animals and symbols was not random. They discovered that the carvings represented astronomical constellations. The scorpion symbolized Scorpio, the bird symbolized Libra, and the wolf corresponded to the Canis constellation. All of these were positioned around a circular shape symbolizing the sun. The researchers believed this was no coincidence. They concluded that the stone was recording a specific event. So what major event could this stone be describing? According to them, the motifs above the constellations represented an object moving across the sky, specifically a meteor. The headless human figure at the bottom symbolized a great destruction. Using computer simulations to track when these constellations aligned in the same configuration, the researchers identified three possible dates. 4350 BC, the sudden appearance of Sumerian civilization. 10,950 BC, 18,000 BC. Anyone who has watched my earlier videos will immediately recognize the significance of 10,950 BC. This corresponds to the Younger Dryas event, a catastrophic period known to have occurred between roughly 13,000 and 11,000 BC. For those who don't know or may have forgotten, during this period, global temperatures spiked extremely rapidly. Massive ice sheets melted, leading to cataclysmic floods, perhaps even the ones referenced in ancient flood myths like the story of Noah. Scientists still debate what triggered this enormous catastrophe, either a meteor impact or, more likely, a massive solar flare that hit Earth. Whatever the cause, the effects were global: floods, fires, electrical storms, and the extinction of many species. This event is scientifically confirmed. This is not fantasy. And countless religious traditions referencing a great flood, along with the sudden disappearance of ancient civilizations, align perfectly with this timeline. We also have additional evidence, some of which is found throughout Turkey: enormous underground cities. As I explained in last week's video about Agartha and Shambhala, many cultures around the world speak of advanced beings or humans sheltering underground during a global catastrophe and later emerging to rebuild civilization. One of the best-known examples is the underground city of Derinkuyu. Ask anyone visiting Cappadocia, and they'll tell you Christians built it to escape Roman persecution. But this is a serious historical mistake. Even when examined through official archaeological data, no one knows who first built Derinkuyu. Let's trace it back. It was used by refugees fleeing Timor, before that by Muslims fighting the Byzantines, before that by Christians fleeing the Romans, and even earlier by refugees of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. And that's only back to the 5th century BC. Yet the city was already there. No one knows its true origin. And logically speaking, could fleeing civilians build an entire underground city while being hunted? Impossible. Such cities are also poor choices for hiding from armies. Once the location is found, you're trapped. Even the smoke from ventilation shafts can reveal your position. Derinkuyu also connects to dozens of other underground cities and tunnels, some rumored to stretch all the way to Kayseri. Excavations are ongoing. So ask yourself, why would people build massive underground networks when the surface was perfectly livable? Were they insane? Of course not. All myths share the same theme: a global catastrophe. Not just floods, fires, droughts, electrical storms, events that made the Earth's surface uninhabitable for years. During such times, the only safe places would be underground or in high mountain regions. And indeed, that is exactly what the myths and physical evidence suggest. For those wanting more cross-evidence, let's look at ancient religion, specifically Zoroastrianism, one of the oldest known religious traditions. It predates even the earliest written records, likely originating around 2000 BC, though its true origins are unknown. Concepts like heaven, hell, final judgment, the Messiah, angels, and demons all trace back to Zoroastrianism. In the Vendidad, one of its most important texts, we find a story strikingly similar to flood myths, but with a twist. The hero Yima is warned of a coming world-destroying catastrophe, not a flood, but a deadly winter. A divine being instructs him not to build a boat, but to build an underground city, a multi-layered, self-sufficient refuge. Yima brings 2,000 people and every kind of animal into this underground sanctuary, where they survive the catastrophe and eventually re-emerge onto a healed Earth. Now, some of you might be confused because many of us associate the Younger Dryas event with sudden warming. So what is this deadly cold about? In reality, the Younger Dryas began around 14,500 BC, with a sudden and severe drop in global temperature lasting about 2,000 years. Then, near its end, temperatures spiked violently, melting ice sheets and causing the great floods that appear in various mythologies. So the freezing period corresponds to Yima's story, while the later warming aligns with flood myths like Noah. These stories became intertwined over thousands of years, but as research expands, we understand the timeline much more clearly. Whether Göbeklitepe was built to remember this event or to warn future generations, we may never know. But it's entirely possible that the floods covered these massive complexes under meters of mud, erasing them from history once again. What we do know is this: Göbeklitepe is one of the greatest proofs that human history must be rewritten from the beginning. Its discovery has inspired researchers worldwide to search more boldly for evidence of humanity's hidden past. And these efforts are bearing fruit with new findings around the globe. I'll continue sharing these extraordinary ancient sites and their stories. Feel free to ask your questions in the comments. Until the next video, take care.